Hey guys, this is Game Making Made Simple, and today we're going to be covering top-down bullets and aiming. So here we are in GameMaker Studio. We have 4 objects: bullet, enemy, player, and wall. The wall and enemy objects don't contain any code, so we'll be leaving them alone for this tutorial. Starting with OBJ player, we'll briefly go through the create and step events. Here we are in the create event. We are initializing all the variables that we'll need for the player object. To recap from my previous videos, bright green text represents built-in variables, while the blue variables are user-created. Built-in just means that every object has them, and they're very useful for setting basic things like the direction of an object, which we'll use shortly. For the fire rate and fire timer variables, the fire rate represents the cooldown between bullets, and the fire timer is a counter that we'll use later in the step event. Finally, bullet speed represents how fast the bullets will be moving, and SPD shows us how fast the player will be moving. Moving on to the step event, we've got a few distinct sections of code. First, we're setting the player's direction, which is where it's facing, and the image angle, which represents where the sprite is facing. Basically, if we don't change the image angle, the sprite will face right the whole time, even if we're moving, so here's a comparison between the two. Next up, we're simply checking if we're a certain distance away from the mouse and updating the X and Y values if we're holding down the right mouse button. After that, we have the bullet code, which checks if the fire timer is less than the fire rate, and if it is, we add to the fire timer value. The else code means that we're in a state where fire timer is equal to our fire rate, which means that enough time has elapsed for us to fire again. And, if the left mouse is held, we reset the fire timer value to 0 and create a bullet object. Now, I know the with statement seems a little scary, but bear with me, we're going to make it through this together. With statements basically mean that whatever we do within the brackets is with the other object. This means that the variables speed, direction, and image angle are being applied to the bullet object that we just made, and not the player. However, we can reference the player by using the keyword other. So when we say other.bulletSpeed, this just references the player's value of bullet speed. This is a super powerful tool for projects, but I'm planning on making a dedicated video on that in the future. And on that note, if you have any questions you'd like answered or video topics you want covered, drop a like, drop a comment, and I'll be sure to make one. As you can see, the player follows the mouse, and we can move around when we press the right mouse button. That's about it for the player step event. On to the bullet. For the bullet object, we're doing 2 checks. One for the enemy object and one for the wall. The code just checks to see if we've touched an object, and the reason we're using instance place for the enemy is because instance place returns the instance we just touched, so we can do a with call to destroy it, and do a cool effect to show that we've targeted the correct enemy. Do anything you want here. Change the health of an enemy, destroy it outright like I do in the example, or even apply velocity to the enemy you've just hit. Finally, if we're touching a wall, destroy the bullet and create a flare where the bullet is destroyed. And that's about it. Mess around with the variables a little bit, and you can create something completely new. And that's about it for today. If you're interested in learning more about GameMaker Studio, check out the rest of my videos. I want to make this channel the #1 resource for new game developers, so share it around if this helped you out. Have a great day, and tune in next time for some more Game Making Made Simple.